Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Average Joe's X and O's podcast. Max and Nick here with you. And my goodness, has this not been the craziest offseason in free agency we've witnessed? Definitely since started doing the show. You know what I mean? I can't even. I mean, every year there's moves that happen, but Jesus Christ, dude! Like,
I'll put it this way, man. There's usually some bombshells, right? Like last year or 2 years ago, like Stephon Diggs gets traded to the Bills. That's a pretty big bombshell trade, right? Like there's a lot of things that are going on, but this is something we'll talk about a little bit. But when we're looking at quarterback carousel and the changes of scenery on the quarterback landscape this year,
yeah,
has been pretty crazy. And actually, it's really funny because you talk about the landscape and how many moves and things have gone on from a quarterback standpoint, which we will discuss. Deshaun Watson for obvious reasons. You being a Browns fan, plus it being a huge trade, we'll discuss that a little bit later. But one of the things that was brought up, and it was actually I thought was a really good point. And I believe it was Daniel Jeremiah that tweeted it out. He alluded to this. He said the Buffalo Kansas City playoff game was a turning point moment in the NFL. The quality of quarterback play was off the charts, and it had to hit home with every head coach, GM, owner. Is my quarterback good enough to compete with that? So, like, he said that was like the catalyst for, oh shit, we better start making some quarterback offseason moves. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I think people watch that game and then watch what Joe Burrow did, and teams are like, oh shit, we better try to go get our guy.
yep.
Denver with Russell Wilson, they make that move. The Green Bay Packers doing whatever they can to retain Aaron Rodgers and retain him. And we'll get into that a little bit later here too. The Browns trading for Deshaun Watson. Like, I think teams realize like they're all in. Like, we have to go all in on a guy that's a proven commodity. And, that's what we're seeing, which has been awesome for guys like us who podcast and talk about this shit.
Yeah.
This is a lot to talk about. So
Yeah. Well, also, I don't know if it was Jeremiah, but someone made a really good point. And it's like, to your point, being able to, I mean, we've seen Super Bowls be won by quarterbacks who were good quarterbacks, not great. We hear that term, game manager a lot. But to your point, like we're getting to the point where like you need to have somebody elite to even fucking make it. You know what I mean? And when we get to the Watson stuff, I mean, I think the Browns are a perfect example of that as well when we debate this whole Baker situation. So when we get there, we'll talk about that. But you mentioned a great quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. I mean, to kick off all the craziness in the news, let's start there. Devonte Adams was franchise tagged, and then the next thing you know, he's getting shipped off to the fucking Raiders, who are going all in apparently.
Yes.
I just thought like Aaron Rodgers has to be pissed, right? There's no way. I mean, I know he got paid his money, but like it's the best receiver that he has. They got nobody now. So
Right. Well, yeah, Green Bay did whatever they could. Aaron Rodgers now is the second highest paid quarterback in terms of guaranteed money and things in the NFL. And so they gave him that contract and then turn around and can't retain his main weapon. So like it makes you think of like what they're going to do as far as the Green Bay Packers, whether it's free agency. Like I thought immediately after that, I'm like, well, maybe they should try to target an Allen Robinson, or maybe Jarvis Landry goes there. There's still some guys on as free agents that could be a pickup, but not on the caliber of what Devonte Adams is going to bring.
right.
And conversely, the Raiders bring in Devonte Adams, acquire him for a 2022 first round pick and a 2022 second round pick, and then give him the extension. That was a pretty crazy extension. Now it breaks out to 28.25 million per year on average. That's not the full contract details there.
I saw
obviously
141 mil total.
Yeah, 141.25 over 4 years or 5 years, excuse me.
Yeah.
So, the other details on that contract make it more palatable and don't really necessarily mean he's getting paid 28.25. It kind of scales up as the contract, goes on. Very similar to how a lot of these teams are structuring things with the current cap situation and stuff. They're like backloading these contracts a little bit.
Aren't they? So. Do you think they're making these contracts too? Because I heard that the cap space is going to jump up in the next couple of years. So I'm wondering if they're throwing that into consideration as well when they're doing these new contracts.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of these contracts anyway. I mean, when you look at any sort of contract that's ever signed, typically that's how it's framed, or how the framework of it is you a lot of teams will put on void years and kind of spread the signing cap or signing bonus out over the course of time. That makes the cap hit much more palatable in the early years. And then as the cap goes up, they kind of structure it where if the cap goes up by X%, now your contract's going to reflect that. So it keeps you pretty consistent across the board for like percentage against the cap that you're counting against. So when you sign a big name player, you're trying to make that as even as possible. So that way it gives you flexibility to make moves in future years if you have to. And those void years also add on. So that way, if you stay productive, like you sign a 5-year contract with 2 void years, technically it's a 3-year deal. You're going to get paid your 3-year minimum, or whatever your contract is. And those 2 void years allow you to spread that cap space out. If you're still a productive player going into year 4, I can spread your cap hit out over the last year of your deal. Yeah. It makes it a little bit more palatable for dead money and things like that. So that's how a lot of these teams structure that stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. And now the big question for Green Bay is, what do you do at receiver? A couple free agents left, like you said. There was rumors. I saw like somebody was trying to get Landry and OBJ to go play with him. But looking at the draft, Green Bay has the 22nd and 28th pick in the draft. They're going to be able to land one of these top receivers, I believe. Again, it's going to be a rookie. Probably puts a lot of high pressure on whoever it is they do take. Yep. So I would imagine that they still probably want to get a veteran in there. So whether that's OBJ, I think with OBJ's injury, like maybe he's going to sign somewhere, but you're probably going to want someone a little bit more dependable. I think since they lose Devonte Adams, maybe they want to get 2 more guys in there that can kind of handle the load so they don't have to depend on one guy, because who's going to replace Devonte Adams, really? You know what I mean? Nobody.
Right.
So I think Landry would be a great sign for them. And then I don't really know who else. Maybe fill that spot in the draft then. So I don't know what they're going to do, but yeah, I would imagine Aaron Rodgers is not happy.
They're going to need some sort of veteran presence in there, right? Like I would feel like an OBJ, but OBJ is going to be coming into the season with a busted up ACL.
I won't even play until.
I probably won't even play until playoff time or late in the season anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's why. I think that's also why. We'll get to it.
Well,
that the Rams signed Allen Robinson.
It could be a Robert Woods trade, maybe.
Yeah, because he's coming off injury too.
Yeah. I mean, if you're Green Bay, I'd target a guy like Robert Woods, who's been a productive player everywhere he's been. So that'd be a good move for them. But yeah, I mean, kind of flipping back to Devonte, the Raiders also signed Chandler Jones. And he was a pretty big fish there.
So
it's
and they 50. So what? It's Jones, and they just gave.
Adams got a huge contract.
Well, no, who else did the Raiders sign on the other end? Crosby. Was it Crosby?
Oh yeah, Max Crosby. Max Crosby signs a 4-year, $98.98 million contract. 53 of it's guaranteed, and then Chandler Jones signs a $52 million contract over 3 years with 34 guaranteed. So pretty big money there for the edge players for the Raiders, and bringing in Devonte Adams. Question for you: by signing those 2 guys, trading for Rock Ya-Sin from the Colts, that was just a kind of another good depth player there as a cornerback. What does that mean for the Raiders in the AFC West when you think about like all of the moves that the AFC West has made in this, like, I guess, proverbial NFL arms race? What do you think by bringing in Devonte Adams and Chandler Jones specifically?
I think definitely makes them more competitive. And last year wasn't the case, but usually the Raiders, for whatever reason, play the Chiefs pretty tough. Maybe it's just because they're in the same division, and I think offensively they're going to be able to definitely compete. And I didn't know this until the other day. Maybe I forgot. I don't know. But Devonte Adams and Carr actually played together in college. So they might have that chemistry that Chase Young and Burrow have had coming into the league. So that'll be interesting to see. I think offensively they'll be okay. I mean, they still got some weapons on offense. They got Jacobs at running back. I'm not sure how that offensive line is. I think they needed to add some pieces there. Maybe they did that last year. I can't remember. But I'm trying to think who else is on their receiving core. Do you know?
Well, so Zay Jones is gone, but they still have Darren Waller and they still have Hunter Renfrow.
True.
I think they have Hunter Renfrow.
No, they definitely letting him go. He's been. I forgot about Renfrow. I don't know how I forgot about that. And then Waller. I mean, fuck, I had him in fantasy the year before and he killed it for me. So, totally forgot about that. Yeah, no, I mean,
imagine if they still had Henry Ruggs too, man. Like, I mean, if Henry Ruggs didn't fuck up, like that'd be a legit receiving core, I think. Yeah. I mean, right now with Renfrow and Devonte Adams, like it's already pretty solid, and Waller adding into the mix. So
Renfro's funny because he looks like, if you saw him on the street, doesn't look like a fucking NFL player at all. But yet the dude, he's a baller, good route runner. He gets open and he's a baller, dude. But yeah, no, I think they'll be competitive on defense side. Crosby was he's a good defensive end. I don't think he's a guy, like he's got a good motor, but I don't think he's a guy that like, he's not like your Myles Garrett or maybe like your Chase Young or anything. Like he might get you some. I'd have to look at his stats. I don't have him in front of me, but
he was productive last year though.
He was
productive last year.
Was he a double digit sack guy?
I'll have to look here and see.
Because I mean Chandler Jones is still good. I think he'll help out for sure. He's getting up there in age. Was he 33? Something like that. Yeah. I know he started out the season hot last year. He had those 5 sacks in week 1 against Taylor Lewan. He didn't do much after that in terms of sack wise. But I think it's definitely going to help in that division. They obviously wanted to be able to get to, Patrick Mahomes on the defensive side of the ball, get pressure on him any way that they can. So that was one of those ways that they did that. So I definitely think, like we said, that division stacked between, was it Denver, Raiders, KC, who else?
Chargers.
Oh God. I was gonna say Raiders are probably gonna maybe finish second in that division, but I forgot about the fucking Chargers, which we can get into next. I mean, the Chargers we know are going to be tough. They were tough last year. They arguably could have, debating on what side you're on with the overtime rolls, could have, we could have seen them in the playoffs deeper. Well, they tried to get some pieces to fix that. One of them we talked about last week, which was getting Mac. And then they also made a trade for cornerback J.C. Jackson from the Patriots. And and then that's the Rams. These LA teams, man, sometimes it's easy to confuse them. I was going to say receiver, Allen Robinson, but that's the Rams. But no, the Chargers add some pieces, and I think watch out, man. I mean, I think Kansas City's got their fucking hands full.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you think about what they've, specifically what they've done in that division, I mean, the Chiefs just brought on, and I thought this was a really good move for them. They brought on Juju Smith-Schuster, and I thought that was a really good signing for them. If you think about like last year, their biggest struggle, I think, at times was they really only had weapons in Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce in the receiving game. And you didn't really see much production out of guys like, I mean, Mecole Hardman, made his fair share. And,
is he still there?
Pringle. Yeah. So now their trio, you bring on a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster, who I think will fit their scheme really well.
Well, someone's got to go, right? How many receivers?
Byron Pringle's gone from there. So they replaced Byron Pringle with Juju
Smith-Schuster. Did anybody pick him
up? Yes, Byron Pringle went to the Bears.
I think it's a good pickup for the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, they just lost Allen Robinson, so they needed to make a move there too.
Yeah,
and I thought
somebody.
Actually, I had Byron Pringle as like
he's like a young guy.
Yeah, I had him as like a possible like low cost target for the Bills to replace, to add depth at that position. But he was kind of on my like off-season wish list as a low cost, but he ended up getting paid pretty decent, so it makes sense that he didn't go there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they signed Juju. Replace Byron Pringle with Juju. So now your main threats are Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Mecole Hardman still. So you still got, a decent core there in Kansas City.
Some fucking
So
great core.
I think that's an improvement for them. Although I think Juju Smith-Schuster and Jackson Mahomes TikToks and things are going to be pretty insane. So good for them. And then the Chargers, after we talked about the Khalil Mack trade last week and on the last episode, they turn around and land J.C. Jackson, the all-pro corner who led the league in interceptions from the Patriots. So, yeah, I think we're seeing like I said, it's a proverbial arms race in the AFC West. And, as much as the Raiders have done, I just
still
don't
might not be
know
enough,
that
dude.
it still might not be enough, right? I just don't know how it'll compete with, what they got there.
And any other division, they'd be sitting pretty,
I mean, in the harsh reality is that, Derek Carr is not a bad quarterback. Like, I think he's very underrated in the NFL. But he's probably the worst quarterback in that division, right. Which is crazy to think about. Yeah. Like he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, and he might be the worst quarterback in that division, which is wild. So, and so like I think the AFC West is going to be phenomenal to watch this year. And we'll see what ends up playing out there. But
yeah, dude, I don't know, man. It's not even just AFC West. I mean, the fucking entire AFC. It's just
a lot of good quarterbacks, man. Now speaking of, and I'll bring it up because it was a pretty big signing for my Bills. But speaking of AFC quarterbacks and the talent, so Brandon Beane had a press conference yesterday, and he joked about it. They're like, "Oh, what do you think about all the moves and stuff being made in the AFC?" And he joked, he goes, "Yeah, next year I'm going to vote for realignment and put us in the NFC."
That's funny.
I'm like, oh, that's funny. But speaking of Brandon Beane and the Bills, dude, huge news. And I was pretty stoked to see it. Von Miller signs with the Bills, and the guy is still productive, man. Like he still got it done in the playoffs. He was still on pace to, he was a double-digit sack guy last year. Still shows elite characteristics as a pass rusher. Is currently all-time sack leader for current players in the NFL for sacks. So he's still getting it done. And love that move. I feel like that's what they've been missing on defense. And they kind of retooled the defensive line a little bit too, bringing in Tim Settle from Washington, who I think is going to be a rotational pass rush, interior pass rush guy. Mm-hmm. And I really like what he brings to the table. Daquan Jones coming in from Carolina as a run stuffer. They lose Harrison Phillips in the middle of that defensive line. So they brought in two guys that essentially – those two guys replace everything that they wanted Harrison Phillips to do with like a couple different skill set pieces. Von Miller coming in is big time. And then they bring back Shaq Lawson and Jordan Phillips as well. So they pretty much retooled that whole defensive line, which is crazy.
And they still got the two young guys they drafted last year, right?
Yeah, Rousseau and Boogie Basham, and still have Ed Oliver. So, it's a heavy rotation on defensive line. They cut Star Lotulelei. They're going to get rid of Vernon Butler there. So they've done a complete overhaul on that defensive line. And I think they realize, with what's happening in the NFL, that's going to be key because you have players on the offensive side of the ball that are going to get it done, right? So I still think they're going to search on the offensive side of the ball for more pieces. They still need to shore up the offensive guard position, even though they did bring in Roger Saffold. I love that signing, but they still need to kind of shore that interior up and have a plan going forward. I would not be surprised right now, looking at how this class is in the draft, for them to target a wide receiver. I think it's going to be wide receiver, corner, interior offensive line are going to be the three main focuses for the Bills in the draft this year. But I thought it was a pretty good off season for them. They didn't spend too much money, although the Von Miller contract is kind of crazy, very similar to what Chandler Jones made. Yeah. So that's pretty much on par. But and then they brought in OJ Howard, which I think is an intriguing.
I think that's good.
I
don't think he reached his potential when he originally got drafted with the Bucs.
Agreed. And I like it because it's just a freak athlete at the tight end position, know, and that's your tight end too. Him and Dawson Knox should be able to make some moves. In this,
but they're different. I feel like it's weird.
Dawson Knox I don't think Dawson is quite as athletic as what OJ Howard is, but Knox is he's kind of a do it all type of guy. Like
Yeah.
he's very good blocker. He showed out in the receiving game last year. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think that would be a nice little combo there. With that. But like their moves, and everything they did versus everything anybody else in the AFC is doing, I think it just further separates them from the teams of the AFC East. You know what I mean? Like I don't see anything that the Patriots, the Jets, or the Dolphins have done that'll make me go, yeah, you know what? They brought in some good pieces, but they didn't bring in Von Miller. You know what I mean? Like they didn't bring in a guy like that. So and there's still young quarterbacks in that division that we don't know what they're gonna be yet. So so I think that was a good move for them. Speaking of, what do you think of? So really, the only other two notable teams we already talked about, Allen Robinson to the Rams a little bit, and what that could mean for Robert Woods, possibly maybe a trade to the Packers. Do you think that is writing on the wall for both Odell and Robert Woods, or do you think Odell comes back, or like what do you think happens with the Rams?
I think. I mean, look, Odell was killing it when he went to the Rams. I think him getting injured is probably going to hurt him. I mean, obviously Woods is coming back from injury, but his happened earlier, so like he's probably going to be ready to play this season, and he's a good receiver too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think the Rams do have some power here, because Odell's not under contract, right? That was just a 1-year thing, I thought.
Yeah, and so Odell is, I mean, obviously he's a free agent, and then the
So
way
I guess
look,
I guess it would just depend. Man. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, Robert Woods' contract could be pretty hefty this year.
Because did they pay him like a couple years ago?
Yes, they did. I have to look up his details, but
so yeah, I mean, maybe because of what they did last year to get the pieces they needed to make the Super Bowl and win, maybe they do use him as a trade piece, and maybe I don't know what that would be. But yeah.
So yeah, Robert Woods is going to account going into this year 15.7 towards the cap, 15.95 next year, 17.95 in 2024, and 19.5 in 2025.
Yeah, dude, I think because of the emergence of Kupp and then getting Robinson, I think that they can definitely use him as trade bait, just from the business side of the NFL.
And offloading that contract, right? Yeah, like just trying to get free up some space with that contract there. So
I think so. I think if they haven't already been in talks, maybe Green Bay reaches for him. Trying to think who else might be down to do that, but yeah, I think I could see him being moved for sure. And I'm excited to see Allen Robinson with the Rams, dude, because it'll be the first time that he's in a really good offense and playing with a good quarterback. And I think his upside can still be there. I mean, he's 28, I think. I mean, I still think he's got some good years left, and hopefully, I'm hoping that we'll be able to get to see how talented he really is, because he never really got to get a chance to showcase that when he was with Jacksonville and then the Bears. So
yeah, and that's that's going to be the next domino to fall, and we'll see what plays out with it. But pretty interesting that that they brought in Allen Robinson as a potential replacement for him, and I'm curious to see what he's got left in the tank. I mean, Allen Robinson's 29 years old. Yes, it's the first real quarterback that he's playing with, but I'm still a little skeptical on that front, because like he was never like a elite athlete, and well, I mean, he's an elite athlete. He's in the NFL, so of course he's an elite athlete. But in NFL standards, that is what I'm talking about. Like like he was never like a burner or anything, but an above the rim player, a guy that's always been reliable with his hands. So we'll see how he plays out in that scheme. If there's anybody that's going to get him open looks off of play action and things, I mean, Sean McVay is going to try to do it. So very well could be a clutch signing for them going forward. Staying in the NFC, the Bucks. So Ali Marpet retires. Tom Brady's not there for a while, like everyone's questioning what's going to happen with the Bucs. Well, Tom Brady comes back and he tells the general manager, hey, step aside, I've got this. Immediately, they trade for Shaq Mason from the Patriots to solidify that guard spot. So he gets his replacement guard and a guy he's familiar with, who he played with in New England for a bit. And then they also land Russell Gage and Logan Ryan in the offseason.
Wait, so Brady was involved in there? Or I'm just saying. Just speculating.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, Brady came in and said, you trade for Shaq Lawson.
That's funny.
Bitch. And they obliged.
Yeah.
No, so so like that's just how I thought that was a really good move on their part, because Shaq Mason has been a stud for the Patriots.
It's funny because why are the Patriots trading with the Bucs? It's just kind of funny.
Currently they have I think they only have 2 or 3 of their starting linemen coming back from last year. So like whatever, trade all your linemen away. I don't give a fuck. Like I hope that franchise stays.
Patriots do?
Patriots.
They only have how
many? 2 or 3, I think.
Oh really?
Yeah, coming back from last year. Yeah.
Not good for your young quarterback, but
hey, you know what? Stay a poverty franchise if you want. I don't give a fuck. So that was a move they decided to make, and I thought that was good. Definitely good replacement for Ali Marpet. They re-signed Jensen at center. They still have, so they brought that core back together a little bit, and then they improved the defense there by bringing in Logan Ryan. I do believe I forget if let me look. I think they did bring back Carlton Davis, but they lost one of their other corners, I believe. And now I can't think of who it was.
Offensively, they were able to retain Godwin, and then they're going to be fine on offense.
Yeah.
Again, they got an easier road to get to the Super Bowl. That's for damn sure. So we'll see what happens, but it's not. I think most of us are probably not surprised that Brady decided to come back. At 45 years old, I tell you right now, like when he finally does retire, I think his Giselle is gonna be annoyed probably, because you gotta think. I mean, if he's home for a small amount of time during the year, right, when he's not playing. So when he gets to be home all the time, damn well she's gonna be like, dude, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's why he did come out of retirement. I don't know. He ran out of kids in the neighborhood to suck their souls from them, so that way he could continue playing. Like I don't know what happened, but there he is.
Yeah.
He got done re-signing his deal with the Devil and said, all right, I'm re-upped on the contract. I'm gonna go play again. Yeah. So yeah, but well, how are you feeling?
It's time, huh?
I think we probably should fucking tackle this event.
Right.
Probably the biggest free agent move of this offseason, at least.
Well, yeah.
Maybe one of the bigger trades of in probably the last 10-15 years.
Yeah, especially given the last 4 years of everything that's happened, even with the Browns, right? Like, I mean, you get what you think's your guy at quarterback, number 1 overall, and people debated if he was worth the number 1 overall pick. Really, you have, I mean, if you break it down, you have one really good year of going 11-5, making the playoffs, and then the drought, it's great, It's interesting right now because it still doesn't feel real, but at the same time, like seems to be a big divide between Browns fans right now. Some who longtime fans are claiming they're not going to watch anymore, and Steelers fans are kind of like, hey, you made fun of us and Big Ben for being a rapist, so now looking at you.
Right.
So it's like going back and forth. There's so many different sides of the camp that everybody's on. I mean, we've talked about it on the show. I mean, from a football standpoint, look, there's a lot of I've told you how Browns Twitter, how crazy it is. There's a ton of Baker bros, right? And I think what Baker's done for the Browns up until now has been great. He's pulled us out of a dark place. At the same time, I make the point. I'm like, hey, like the Browns quarterback play was so bad before Baker that like the bar was so low that anything looks better than what that was, right? And Baker was able to do that. And you can just look at the league right now, right? Like they didn't even have to trade Baker to get Watson, right? We'll talk about the legal shit after this, but from a football standpoint, they didn't have to trade him to get him, right? That tells you that Houston didn't want him. They're like, no, we got Mills, who was a rookie last year, and we're going to ride with him and build around him.
Which I think they're pretty high on Davis Mills, to be honest with you.
That's what I'm saying.
I think they really like him as a quarterback. So,
so it doesn't sound like there's a ton of interest. I mean, I don't know what the Browns want when they deal Mayfield, but it doesn't sound like there's a ton of interest out there. And now I know Seattle was maybe like rumored to be a team that'd be interested, but it kind of shows you the market's going to show you what the value is, right? There was talk about the Colts, but I mean, I doubt they'll trade him to the AFC. They'll probably, if they're going to trade him, they'll probably send him to a team like the Panthers or somewhere. I don't know. We don't, that's probably going to happen here in the next week, I would imagine. The next time we do a podcast, we'll probably be talking about where Baker's playing. Statistically, people were trying to say, pull up these stats that like they're the same, that Watson's not as good as Baker or vice versa. And like, Watson still fucking had the most passing yards in the league when they went 4-12. Like he played, people forget, like when he came in, like he was with a shitty organization. Like he played behind a shitty line too. He was getting beat up like every fucking play, you know what I mean? And he was able to be like like he was the guy. That's why they were able to win games and do things. You could make the argument that the Browns, were stacked and that's why they won games. It wasn't necessarily because of Baker Mayfield, like you're seeing with, Josh Allen and some of these other young quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, right? It's a little different in Cleveland, I think. And it's hard for Browns fans, I think, to admit that. It was hard for me to admit that for a minute there because I didn't want to. I wanted Baker to be the guy and work out. But, statistically, I think it kind of shows you, where he's at. I like, and that's the point I was making earlier. I think he's a starter in the league and is a good quarterback, but that's what we're talking about. The difference between being good and being like one of these
being a franchise.
Guys. Yeah.
Right. Yep. You got your tiers, right? You've got your good quarterbacks that, you can win games with, right? Yeah. And then you've got your franchise guys who you're winning games because they're fucking franchise awesome quarterbacks, right? Yeah. And yeah, you definitely put Baker, at this point in his career, you can't put him in the franchise place. And I think the Browns, obviously after this deal, they agree with that sentiment, right? Like you're not, they didn't think they had their franchise guy. And
it's not the same front office either.
Right. So they didn't really fully buy into it. Despite I don't know that Baker really got, especially last year, like I felt like they put him, in a pretty bad position anyway with the injuries and things. Yeah. So maybe a fresh start for him is going to be good. And, we'll see where he ends up going, in the offseason, like where he's traded to. I know Indy and Seattle were teams mentioned, but we'll kind of, we'll kind of see where that ends up. But
one of the biggest stats I did see, though, I forget where I pulled it from. I was curious about the I think we talked about it before, his fourth quarter like comebacks. Most of his comeback wins that he does have came in that rookie season, and since then it's pretty bad. And I can guarantee you put Watson behind this offensive line and this offense, it's gonna look different. I promise you that.
Yeah, so I mean, you're going to definitely see improved quarterback play there. Now, here is my, like, I guess, how do you feel about the compensation that was sent back? and the contract that was subsequently signed when the Browns did trade for
Well,
Deshaun Watson.
Aaron Rodgers definitely set the market, right? Some of these big quarterbacks, so they kind of had a big role in it. I'm going to pull this up because I want to talk about it whenever I get to the point here. So I'm not really surprised. But dude, see Andrew Berry and that, a lot of people like shit on the Browns organization still, but I think the front office is right, dude. Andrew Berry is, if you look at his track record right now, he's like our age, GM, young guy. As his picks in the draft have been fucking good. Everything he's been doing has been good, and that's why I was kind of like, whenever they even said that, the Browns or Watson was out in the Browns, I was like, well, all right, well, they kind of screwed the relationship up with Baker. I don't know what they're gonna do now, but I'm pretty sure Andrew Berry planned for this. You know what I mean? Then it comes out and they got Watson. So I think he always has a plan, and but yeah, it doesn't surprise me because like they would have had to pay the money no matter what, right? Like if Baker panned out and was the guy, they were gonna have to, maybe not that much money, but they were gonna have to dish out money. So they went out. He was their guy, clearly, and that was the deciding factor, I think, actually, was the Browns could offer that kind of money and the Saints and the Falcons couldn't. And so you can say that Watson took the money, which is whatever. I mean, he's gonna have to probably pay a lot of people off. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But you're locked up for you're hoping he's the guy for the next 10 years, minimum of 5 years, right? So we'll get into the suspension stuff. So even if he is suspended, it's like you're doing this for the long-term play anyway, not the short term.
Right. I think that from a contract standpoint,
it's not much more than, it's just more guaranteed money, but it's not much more than like anybody else, like Rodgers and stuff.
It was a decent chunk. I think they were talking like 80 million more than what Rodgers made. Yeah, like I mean 230 fully guaranteed. I think Rodgers was like 150 fully guaranteed, but like
I knew the guaranteed portion was a lot.
It's like, yeah,
someone did bring up a good point about this though with Haslam, right? Because they were talking about how like most of the team's monies are in assets and stuff, and how like with Haslam, I mean, he owns Pilot, like he owns oil, gas, you know what I mean? Like so he probably wanted that shit done and could actually fucking afford this shit. Whether it's coming out of his own pocket or however the fuck he's getting it, they got the money to do it. So who knows what the fuck's going on, how they're paying him that money, but they got it apparently.
Yeah, and so like that contract is huge. And under normal circumstances,
what's it going to be 5 years from now though?
Well, it's all guaranteed.
No.
I mean, like in the scope of all the other quarterbacks, you mean?
As if when the cap goes up and all that shit.
I'll put it this way. I'm glad the Bills signed Josh Allen when they signed Josh Allen, because now that contract is going to set the market to some astronomical figure. And I'm glad the Bills made the move when they did. The Ravens might be sitting here kind of screwed the pooch on not signing Lamar Jackson sooner than they did, right?
Yep. So it's definitely going to fuck them, dude. Especially they're going to wait and see what Lamar does this year. If he doesn't get, if he's healthy and everything,
right,
pans
now,
out.
Kyler Murray's sitting there licking his chops now. You know what I mean? Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow are fucking fist pumping like thank you, Cleveland. You just fucking secured our bag. You know what I mean?
So right now it looks like a ton, and it is a ton for Cleveland, but that just set a new fucking bar for some of these young guys.
Right. And and it's the same deal. It's just like what Kirk Cousins did when he got his fully guaranteed contract. These quarterbacks are doing that shit now, right? Yeah. So like that's just like kind of the play for quarterbacks. So,
and in the NFL, dude, like let's be real. Like out of all the other professional sports, like they put their bodies in line, they should get some good guaranteed money, I think.
Yeah, and it is the most important position in sports, so I understand why they get paid what they get paid, right? Like it makes sense, but the market was kind of established, before this year, and then now that just kind of,
like it's crazy because we were talking about Mahomes' deal not too long ago. Now we're here, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, it's just kind of funny because like it was like Jacksonville setting the wide receiver market by signing Christian Kirk, right? And everyone's like every other agent that
even
comes
DBs
out
are talking
like,
shit.
Right. Well, they're like, oh well, hey, you know what? Christian Kirk just made X amount of dollars. Like they wanted that to be what set the market, right? So like that's just how it goes. A guy signs, that's the new bar, right? So That contract was crazy. What do you think about amount of picks that were given up for Watson? Were you comfortable with that?
I mean, I think it's typical usually when people go and go after a quarterback. We've seen it in the past. But here's what's crazy. So essentially this year they only gave up one pick. They gave up that number 13th pick, that first rounder, right?
Yep.
They still have 5 picks in this year's draft in the first 118 picks of this year. Like they're still loaded up. You know what I mean? So, and they haven't even got their picks back from Baker yet, right? And here's the expectation is, they're even though the AFC is stacked, they're expecting to, and this could not be the case. We saw it last year. Well, let's say hypothetically they're making it to the, deep in the AFC playoffs, maybe they make a Super Bowl appearance. Like they're going to have a late round first round pick, right? Well, when Sony Michel was drafted by the Patriots in 2018, I think, was it 18?
Yes.
It was the first time the Patriots had drafted in the first round in over a decade, and they were still able. So now it's an organizational thing. They were always good, and like at how they did things with their team, and obviously they had Brady, but like they were able to sustain being a dominant team without picking in the first round, especially at the end of the first round. Now I think the first round picks are valuable when you're a team that's building, like say you're the Jets or the Giants, and you want all those picks to be able to build through the draft at a certain point. I think the Browns are at the point where like they are in their Super Bowl window. They have talent. So like they can afford a couple of years of not having a first round pick. So for me, it doesn't really bother me that much as opposed to it used to in the past because we needed picks, right? Just like any other team. Like I think the Bills could get away with not having a first round pick for a couple of years because the Bills are in their window as well. Same thing with a couple other teams. So that doesn't really bother me too bad.
Yeah, I would agree in that sense that a first round pick, if it means you're getting a proven commodity, shipping a first round pick for example, like when when the Bills traded for Stephon Diggs, like that essentially was their first round pick that year. And, it proved to make a vast difference on that offense. And it was a player that you bring in and very important piece to what they do. Now that's just a wide receiver. Now you're looking at a quarterback, and yes, 3 first round picks definitely seems viable for a guy that is, a pretty, he's pretty well known as a top tier AFC quarterback in the NFL, right? So spending the first, 3 first round picks, I don't think it was. If you got a franchise guy, like that's minimum of what you get. Honestly,
and they
if I
didn't
were
give up
Houston,
any players. That's what's the craziest part.
If I'm Houston, like I might have even been looking for 4. You know what I mean? Like for a guy of Deshaun Watson's caliber.
Yeah.
So like I don't think 3 first round picks, a third rounder and a late pick swap. I don't think that that's really terrible for the Browns, especially with the plethora of picks you guys already had in this year's draft, where you could still probably trade some of that, those assets and get into the first round if you really wanted to. That's still viable for you guys. My biggest concern about the whole thing before we kind of dive into, like short, long-term outlook for the Browns and things like that. My biggest concern with this move for the Cleveland Browns is the allegations are still there.
Mm-hmm.
So we could still see legal repercussion, despite, it's more in a civil sense than it would be, anything else, but we could still see that. And you're talking about a guy who did not play at all last year, who might be suspended again for another full year. So you're putting all those assets into a guy that could be 2 years removed from playing football before he steps foot onto the football field again. Does that change things for him? I don't know.
Yeah.
Does the legal ramifications of this last longer than the year suspension? Do things not get settled? There's a lot of risk involved with it. Now, obviously, you would think the Browns have done their due diligence on that piece of it and are comfortable with where that stands. However, it's not necessarily a clear cut, cut and dry type of thing. So when you're talking about that, I do think, in normal circumstances, had Deshaun Watson not really been dealing with this and he just said, fuck you, Houston, I want to go somewhere else, and the Browns made a trade for him and there were no civil suits or anything like that.
Yeah.
and he didn't sit out a full year, I'd say, dude, slam dunk. But there is that in the back of my mind, just that outside of what you think about him personally, how it looks optics for the organization when it comes to sort of what he's been doing. I'm just talking about from a football standpoint, like there is that question mark about the baggage that he brings and where he would be if he is in fact 2 years removed from playing football.
Yeah.
So that's like my only concern with the deal is you're looking at that, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So you guaranteed him that contract. He might be 2 years removed from playing football. Is he going to be at the level that he played at, previously when he was on the field?
Yeah. I mean, when you're dealing with the NFL, I think at the end of the day, it is all about money, whether that's right or wrong. I just don't think that because there was no criminal charges, I think maybe he'll get a little suspension, but and maybe the NFL wants to cover her ass to make it look like they're doing something. So like, I don't know how long that suspension is going to be. I don't see it being a full year, honestly. I just don't know what it would do, Um, but yeah, dude, like, I mean, the accusations, it's weird, I got to talk to my other buddy. He said he's kind of torn, a little bit. The way I kind of look at it is, I'm a Browns fan. So like the whole team, am I going to go buy a Watson's jersey? I'll probably stay away from that, but,
I gotcha.
I don't listen. We only hear what's reported. Like I've said it already. I'll say it again. Like, it can be true that Watson demanded a trade and then Houston didn't want that with the owner. I mean, there was like supposedly some beef there, and like the guy is pretty big in Houston and supposedly has some connections, but didn't like that. And all of a sudden these accusations come out, right? A lot of them. And it's like, well, that's hard to ignore. It's, first of all, why do you have why does Deshaun Watson have 40 massage therapists, and why are they all women, and why are 22 of them coming out? Because there's people just focus on 22 that are complaining about it, but there's also a high number of ones that said that they never had anything go down too. Like there was some and I could be, it was just something I read. I don't know like the accuracy or the numbers behind it, but there was other people that came out and said he was great when they massaged him and stuff. So you got both sides, right? And it's one of those like things. It's like, all right, well, it does get, it could be mutually, they don't have to be mutually exclusive, right? This whole thing came out like right when Watson was demanding a trade from Houston. It was just like weird timing. And I forget where I was going with that point, actually. But anywho, like I don't want to like pick sides in terms of like he's automatically guilty or he's innocent. I don't fucking know. Like we're never gonna know. Like what we only hear what's reported, right? So, he could have done some shit. He could not have done some shit. It's just one of those things that we're never gonna honestly know for 100% fact. So a lot of people are like, well, he's automatically guilty, based on the word of these women, right? I don't know, dude. It's just a tricky situation. But because he's not criminally charged, I think the NFL's eyes, all right, well, that means, because when we're talking about morality in sports, what are we talking about, right? We've already talked about Ben Roethlisberger, and I didn't even know this until a couple days ago. Did you know Jim Brown apparently had 7 allegations of the same thing back in his day, and they built him a fucking statue, and he's kind of like a god. A lot of Browns fans don't know that, and they fucking wear his jersey and love the dude. You know what I mean? I didn't know that. I had to ask my dad about it.
Yeah,
I'm not saying any of it's right or wrong. All I'm saying is like, none of us are ever going to know 100% what 100% has. Now it is a lot of women, dude. It's a lot of coming forward and saying what they said in detail. I don't know how you prove it. I don't know if someone should be guilty until proven innocent or innocent until proven guilty. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a messy situation.
It's tough, man. It really is. And one of the things that I side on the fact that it's hard to, like, if it was like 3 people, okay, but 22 people, man, like that says a lot, I think. And while we're still waiting for all the information to be released on there, you can still recognize the fact that criminally he's innocent because of a lack of evidence. Like, a lack of evidence does not necessarily mean innocent, right? It just
Right,
means that
right,
there
right.
wasn't enough to convict you.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, based on a lack of evidence, and um you know that part of it is what tugs at my
Yeah,
the
yeah.
back of my mind, is like, okay, what's a lack of evidence versus like, oh yeah, you know what, you're innocent despite it's tough, man. It's a tough
And then, but
situation.
then the other
But
side of it too is like, and this is not me sticking up for Deshaun in this case, but like, being a pro athlete, you hear about basketball players all the time. I mean, Lisa Ann is a famous porn star who talked about how she would anonymously would hook up with NBA players because, you know, high profile, like they, keep a low rep, right? When you start dealing with like a professional athlete, dude, it's tough, man. Like, you never know. I mean, look at that fucking Brittany Renner chick who's like fucking, she's getting all this publicity, but she fucking was married or had a kid with that one basketball player who's not a big star, and then fucking divorced him right away. And you know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Play for the Sixers, I think. I forget his name. But like, she's known for, she would like, there's videos of her like ranting about like fucking dudes over and like fucking athletes and all this shit. And then she gets knocked up and married by this basketball player, and then immediately divorces him and gets paid all this money. You know what I mean? You didn't hear about that? I thought we talked about it before. And it's
Maybe
like
I
Brittany Renner or whatever. Even Deion Sanders brought her in to like teaches players like, hey, stay away from this shit. You know what I mean? But anywho, like shit like that. Like, there's women out there that are gonna fucking try and take advantage of high profile athletes. So there is that too. And Louis C.K. had a funny bit about Tiger Woods and that whole situation he went through. He's like most of these guys think they're morally basically, the moral high ground. He's like, most guys don't have a busload of fucking hot ass women waiting for you at the 18th hole, to give you options. Tiger Woods did, and like, it's a joke, you know what I mean? But like, making the point that athletes have it's different, you know what I
yeah.
mean? So again, I'm not saying that like, 22 women are at fault trying to get money out of Deshaun Watson. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying it just makes the whole situation even fucking harder to
Well,
yeah.
knowing that history exists with other people, right? Like, I feel like that's always a counterpoint that's brought up when this stuff happens. But again, it's, if it were like three people that said this, okay, I could see where collusion might have come into place. But 22 separate people,
Mhm.
you know it's kind of eye opening. And we talked about it even before. Like, what's the reason for 22 different massage there? You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of just unanswered questions that are surrounding it, right? And just a lot that doesn't make sense. Now,
Yeah.
granted, I'm not a professional athlete. I don't travel all the time. I don't know the habits for these players. That's not anything that I'm specifically, qualified to speak on. But it to me, it does seem slightly odd. And I some of the people that are, um in league circles also find it kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
And then there's that clip that I sent you, regarding one of the players that were on Houston, saying that behavior wasn't necessarily a surprise to them. You know what I mean? So like there's a lot of little things that kind of, whether that's misinformation or whatever the case is, there's a lot of things that play in, into, you can acknowledge the fact that he's criminally innocent, but that doesn't mean you have to respect him as a person. And you can, kind of feel gross and shitty about what he brings to the table,
Yeah.
and like as an overall image for the NFL too, right? Like, allowing that stuff. So that's why I think, from an optics standpoint, they're going to say, listen, based on what we have in the CBA, despite you being criminally innocent, very much similar to what Ben Roethlisberger did, where he still served 6 games, even though criminally he was innocent.
Yeah.
That's the that's where I'm thinking a precedent was set, and that's why I can see a year being a thing. for him, despite what people think morally of the player. Yeah. So, that's definitely something there. But
yeah, and like going back to the morality thing, it's like it's so weird because like Ray Lewis was fucking accused of murdering 2 people or being, at fault for it. And, he's dude, he founded not guilty, but like a lot of people still thinks he was fucking involved in that shit. And went on to become one of the best linebackers, and people in Baltimore and people who aren't fans of the Ravens fucking love him. You know what I mean? So you can find all these individual cases of NFL athletes throughout the history of the game, right? Like, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of the players come from shitty fucking neighborhoods, and have a past and a history, and are involved in things that some of us morally would find not cool.
right.
I mean, the Michael Vick situation, most people were like, oh, he's killing fucking dogs. The way he explained it in his documentary made sense to me. He's like cops, and nobody growing up in our neighborhood, nobody fucking said it was bad, like it was just what they did, you know what I mean? But they were never arrested for it. So that I totally get that logic, you know what I mean? That's just, I mean, maybe that's a bad example for some people, but like it's like a cultural thing where like, we look at the Yulin Dog Festival as being something fucking crazy, but in China it's like a fucking celebration where they're just killing a bunch of dogs and eating them, you know what I mean? But over here in the States, we're like, no, fuck that. That's fucked up, So like, but yeah, we can go through the history every year of the NFL and find players that are playing in the game that questionably have some questions, like I used Kareem Hunt as an example. A lot of Browns fans love Kareem Hunt because he's from Cleveland. There's literally video of him. This is Sparta kicking a chick right in the fucking chest, and
Right.
we love him. So like,
Yeah.
we're at this point, a lot of the times, a lot of the things we're doing with morality in sports is like, what's worse,
No,
what I mean?
I
When
can
it's
I
all
can
kind of
see
when
it.
it's all kind of shitty, you know
Right.
what I mean?
I
So
can
it's like,
see.
where do we draw the
I
line?
Right. I could see it being like, you know, a very hypocritical, like from a sports fan standpoint, like hypocritical. Like if you're gonna, shit on Deshaun Watson while simultaneously praising Kareem Hunt, like, that's that's a very conflicting ideologies there, right? So like,
Yeah,
now when it comes to, if you hate all those players, like at what point do you walk away from it? Like at what point
right,
do you
right,
let it
right.
start bothering you enough to where you're not going to, from a league standpoint, I'm not just talking about from a team standpoint, like, you could have somebody be a shitty person and have, something come up where you go, well, fuck, if you're going to employ this person, I'm just not going to watch you play. I'm going to root for a different team. Right.
Yeah,
Well, that that's fine. But at what point do you look around the league and go, well, fuck, like if you're going to take your moral, you're the moral high ground and you say, well, I'm going to root for a different team. And then you look around the league and you go, well, fuck, every team's got some shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
is that when you walk away from football? Like, what do you do there? Right. So yeah, I can understand that point of it. There's a lot to be, I guess, just like when you talk about it, everybody has their opinion on the matter, right? Like,
Hmm.
some people are going to ignore it and say, well, he's innocent. Like, we're fine with that. That's all it needs for me to stop the issue. Other people are going to look at it from a standpoint of, nobody believes women in sexual assault cases, and it's very difficult to prove, and the statistics show it, and what, and believe he's guilty despite it being from a criminal standpoint, he's not, right? So
Yeah,
like, you're gonna have those two sides of the spectrum, and that's why I think some fans in Cleveland are disappointed and disgusted and don't want to have anything to do with the Browns anymore because of what happened. And other people are like, hey, you know what? Criminally, he's not guilty. We take a look at a court of our peers,
yeah.
or a jury of our peers, and if they say he's not guilty, then who am I to disagree with it? And we're still gonna root on with the team regardless. So
Yeah.
yeah, everyone's gonna fall on their different,
I think the weirdest thing too about his situation, Watson's situation, is like, it's not like when he got to Houston, he was like you would think something like this would have started in college, right? Like he was one of the best quarterbacks in college football too, right? With Clemson, he pretty much put Clemson on the map, right? So like to not have an incident in college like this, I think is kind of weird. Like what, you know what I mean? Like I would just assume, I don't know, that like you could track it back to if that's how his behavior is, you know, with women especially, you'd think something would come out and
Right.
even after all this, maybe a girl would be like, oh, this happened to me when I went to school and college, you know what I mean? So I think that's kind of weird as well. But
Man.
I don't know, man. It is crazy. It's always going to be a thing there no matter what. I mean, even 10 years from now, let's say the Browns win some Super Bowls with them, you know, some people are it's always gonna be a thing, you know. Um and but yeah, dude, I don't know. I did hear, I can't remember if I said this earlier. I'm gonna be honest with you. I microdosed. This is my day 4 of microdosing shrooms, and this one hit me really fucking hard. So as we got to this topic, like I don't know if you saw me being kind of scatterbrained. I'm trying to contain my shit right now.
Try to hold it all together. There you go.
And I don't know if you could tell, but yeah, dude, I was my brain's moving at a million miles per second right now. But did I, Brent? Supposedly teams hired private investigators. Did you hear about that? Did I say that?
Who was this now?
So apparently what I heard on the 92.3 of the Fan, which is Cleveland radio show, teams hired that were interested in Deshaun Watson, hired their own private investigators to go assess the situation to see about like what we're talking about with suspensions and like how bad it can get. So the Browns could have already been fucking doing their homework last year. I mean, who knows? You know what I mean? So I think for a move to be made like this, like teams did their whatever they could to make sure, you know, of the situation. So I don't know, man. There's so much shit that like we'll never know 100% on the matter, and we can all have our opinions and everything, whether it's right or wrong. But here we are. Here it is what it is. He's a Cleveland Brown. Like he's gonna play, you know.
Right.
And you know, I love the game of football. I watch all teams, you know. We have this podcast, we talk about everybody, not just Bills, not just Browns. But I'm gonna keep watching because of the team, you know what I mean? So
well, speaking of watching for the team, what do you think their outlook looks like this upcoming season after the Deshaun Watson trade and the Amari Cooper trade, which was big?
Well, I think I honestly think Super Bowl's in Arizona this year. They just finalized it. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
Oh, I like it. Hopefully the Browns get to the Super Bowl and I can fucking go. No.
Sell a kidney if you're gonna go, because that's about what it costs.
Yeah.
Is an organ from your body.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to like give both my legs up probably. And wheel
was
myself
it? You used to like donate like plasma, right? Like you're gonna have to donate a ton of fucking plasma for that shit, bro.
I'd have to start like 3 years ago. It's probably what. No, but I think in the AFC North specifically, well, Steelers are at the bottom right now, just if you're basing it off quarterback play. You know, they got Trubisky there. I mean, out of, you know, Burrow and Lamar Jackson. I think the Ravens actually made some good moves. We didn't really talk about them, but the Ravens, I think, are going to be fine. They were kind of injured last year. I honestly think Cincinnati is going to fall off a little bit. Not saying they're not going to be good, but I don't think they're going to have that heat like they had this year. I think they come back down to reality a little bit. But no, I think the Browns have a really good chance at fighting for the division. If Watson's on the field. And as far as the whole, I mean, think about the teams in the AFC that aren't going to make the playoffs who have good squads, right? Like it's pretty crazy, man. Like I don't think the NFL's ever been this lopsided in talent in terms of AFC and NFC.
No, I agree. And I think the AFC is just like, yeah, they've gone way overboard, and they have a lot of the premier players now.
And I don't think you can fix it fast like you can in basketball. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I agree with that too. Now, as far as
still got to play the games though.
Yeah, I think the Browns instantly become the favorites of the division.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think it's going to be tight though. You know, it's hard to really count the Ravens out, even like you said,
That's
like
what
you
I'm
alluded
saying.
to.
Like
Yeah, like
it's tough.
because they weren't necessarily the same Ravens team with Lamar being hurt and stuff last year.
They were banged up just as much as the Browns were. I mean, when they played each other, they were all banged up.
So, you know, by adding Watson, you're going to compete offensively with teams like that. But I just think,
and this depends too. Like the Browns need a couple more pieces on defense, and like I don't know what they're going to draft, but they need some defensive tackles and stuff. But it's going to be a fight. It's going to be neck and neck, I think, between the Ravens and the Browns for that division.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I think we can. Granted, you got to play the games, but
now if Case Keenum's your fucking backup and he's the one starting games during a suspension for Watson, then I think it changes.
That changes. Yeah. The suspension part about it is definitely going to play a big role. But I think, between, I can see the Browns being the favorite, and then really having the Bengals and the Ravens kind of like close together as you know, in that division. It's going to be a bloodbath in that division. I think we count out. I think we can absolutely count out Pittsburgh. But they have good coaching, so who knows? You know what I mean?
I mean, their defense is good.
Yeah. So.
I mean, unless Mitch Trubisky just fucking
lights it up.
Yeah, I don't know.
Possible. So that's it's going to be definitely going to be
it's going to be tough, dude.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
But in terms of around the league, though, like I think the Bills easily win their division. I can't even say Kansas City easily wins their division now. I don't know. So yeah, dude, it's going to be. I'm excited to see it pan out, and I don't know. But I also as a Browns fan know not to get too excited because we've been here before.
Yeah,
I'd rather just keep it mellow and not have the shitstorm hit and then be like, here we go. You know, I'd rather keep it low. You know what I mean?
Right. Keep expectations low, and then if
I'll ride the high as it happens. You know what I mean? So it's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, man. So I guess my message to Browns fans is just, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing, dude. You have the freedom to turn the TV off. Don't watch. Don't be a fan. I mean, that's a choice too. So it's up to
exactly.
You. I mean, it is what it is. You know, you don't have to be a fan at all.
Right. Exactly. So, but yeah, dude, it's gonna be a fun stretch here. And it's free agency's not even over with, man. You know, but
there's still going to be some moves made. Like I said, next Saturday we're going to be talking about where Baker goes and what the Browns get.
Yeah,
it might even be a receiver. I think that personally, my prediction is I think they're not going to probably be able to get a first round pick for Baker. So like you try and get a good receiver. Seattle, maybe steal Metcalf or somebody away. I don't know. Probably wouldn't happen, but
he might go to Seattle. Baker might get traded.
No, there. I do think that could be the landing spot. It's going to be an NFC team, I think, and I think they're a good spot for him. Maybe
now
Panthers, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I heard they were out on Baker. So, the Panthers? Yeah.
So I saw Seattle. That. Seattle could be it.
Seattle and Indy seem to be the ones that are the primetime, candidates for it. So
I just don't know what they'd give Indy or what Indy would give them, what they'd be asking for.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's an AFC team, so I don't know. Who knows?
I could see
Indy is built right now. They're built. They're quarterback away, I think.
I could see a third, like a conditional third that could turn into a second.
Yeah, I don't know.
Depending on like how he performs, you know what I mean? But
yeah. We're gonna find out though. We're gonna find out here soon.
Hey, now that we have a lot of things finalized here and some trades went down, be a good podcast episode to run through some mocks next week.
We can do that. I think we should do that next week because we're not going to have news. Yeah, but then
we keep saying it, but then the shit like this happens. It's like well, a mock would have been pointless before this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It changes everything. So
yep.
Yeah, we can do that. I say we do that next week.
Maybe review a mock that somebody put out, see what we think about it, and let's go over our own. See what we do. So
sounds fun. But yeah, that's all we got for today, man. There's just so much shit that happened in a week's time in the off season. Here we are. Normally, I'm worried about not having content in the off season, so we got fucking plenty.
It's the news cycle never stops, bro. It just never stops.
We're about a month away or so from the actual draft, and yeah, we're gonna have plenty to cover over the next month. So, but you can follow us at AJXO Pod on Twitter and TikTok. Personally, you can follow me at Justin_Maxim.
And you guys can follow me on Twitter at BillsFan53. That's B1 LLS Fan53. So definitely give us a follow.
Yep. And yeah, man. Until next week, y'all be sweet.